Hey everyone, it's Jack. It's been a little while, so let's do another hot takes video. A couple weeks ago on my community post, I asked you to submit your Drag Race hot takes, so today we are going to look at them and I'm going to see if I agree or disagree. And just for fun, I'm going to do an unpopular scale, with 1 being a super popular opinion and 10 being super unpopular. Because no matter how many of these that I do or other people do, I still get the opinion All-Stars should only happen every couple years, which is probably one of the most popular opinions out there. But even seeing that, I still appreciate the participation from all of my viewers. And with that out of the way, make sure you like and subscribe, only a small percentage of you are. And let's jump in with the first hot take. Season 4 is pretty mid. The drama always felt fake, and it felt so weird how the editors didn't care about more than half the cast. I agree with this opinion, and I would give it a 5 out of 10 on the unpopular scale. There seems to be a growing sentiment among avid Drag Race viewers that Season 4 does not really stack up against the rest of the seasons. While there are many iconic fights and quotes, and arguably the best lip sync of all time that come from the season, and a winner that's now disgraced but still very influential among the queens that have come after them, these moments are more one-off examples of entertainment as opposed to a full product. There are some good challenges this season, but a lot of them still do fall flat, and they were still trying to find their footing. Especially with the edit, I think that's where they were still having the most trouble. The sheer amount of drama this season was pretty crazy, especially compared to last season's, which definitely got a little mean-spirited, but it was way more behind the scenes and in confessionals than full-on confrontational screaming matches multiple times. Because of the frequency of these really crazy moments, the editors are going to gravitate towards those queens that are involved. And unfortunately, that leaves a lot of the early out queens on the cutting room floor. If the same scenarios happened a few seasons later with the editors becoming more seasoned, I think we would have gotten an even better season from it. But as is, the personalities still shine through even if they don't really know how to highlight them the best up to this point. But I think Season 4 had to happen in order to get a much more polished Season 5. Season 5 does not endure the test of time because of all the fighting, bullying, and personal attacks. I definitely disagree with this opinion with the notion that it doesn't stand the test of time, because if anything, I think Season 5 gets better as the years go on. I wasn't watching Drag Race when the season came out, but if I was, I definitely do think I would get a bad taste for all of the fighting that happened in the season. But because it did happen so long ago, and so many of the major players of Season 5 are still friends, with a lot of the drama being water under the bridge and something they could just laugh at now, it makes a rewatch much more digestible, and it's always the first season I show people trying to get into the show. And while I do think a lot of the drama is on par with Season 4 in terms of how kind of mean-spirited it is, the way it's presented in the edit makes it more watchable, and it's all surrounded around Jinx, who is the underdog of the season. If Jinx didn't win at the end, I don't think this season would stand the test of time as much as it does now. But knowing that she does come out on top, it makes for a season that I want to watch at least once a year. But these are the exact hot takes that I really enjoy talking about, because even if I don't agree, it sparks a conversation and it gets me to think about things from a different perspective. If you've ever wondered how scammers get your phone number or why your inbox is flooded with spam, there are these companies called data brokers that sell your data. They make billions by selling your data to marketers, scammers, or even stalkers, and they do it all without your consent. And while they're legally required to remove your information if you ask, they make the process confusing and hard on purpose. That's why I recommend today's video sponsor, Aura. They take care of the hard part by removing your info off of these sites and making sure to keep it off those sites. Aura is an all-in-one digital security. You may already have a digital security tool, but not having Aura is like locking your front door while leaving your back door completely open. With Aura, you're able to get alerts if your personal info is found on the dark web. There's real-time fraud alerts for credit and banking, 24/7 monitoring to keep your identity secure, a secure VPN, antivirus, password manager, and more. And it's US-based, available around the clock if something goes wrong. If anything does happen, Aura includes $5 million in identity theft insurance protection. I think it's a really great service. It helps me keep peace of mind about all of my data. If you're interested, try Aura for free for 14 days at aura.com/JackFed. In those 2 weeks, you'll discover where your data is being sold and exposed. I don't want to leave myself vulnerable, and you shouldn't either. Thanks to Aura, and now let's get back to the video. Paramount Plus has effed up All-Stars. This is an opinion that I definitely agree with, and I don't think it's the most unpopular, so I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 10. All-Star 6 was the first season to be a Paramount Plus exclusive, and at the time, it seemed really fun. There was more money, there was attention from a network that seemed to really believe in the show, even if that streaming service was Paramount Plus, which is definitely not the most sought after one. But I think one of the biggest issues with this is the horrible air times in the United United States. And of course, there has always been an issue with air times for any other country that's not in the time zones of the US or Canada or basically like all of North America. But because Paramount Plus is based in the United States, I would expect air times to kind of reflect that, in the sense that they could have strategic control over when the episodes are put up to align with things like viewing parties. And I know that's completely asking for way too much out of a streaming service that I don't really think cares about that, but it's fun to always at least ask. Drag Race has one of the most devoted fan bases out there, shout out to all of my viewers, and so much of the success of the show comes from the buzz that it creates online each and every week. And All Stars still successfully does create that buzz, but a lot of the time it's very spaced out throughout the day when the episode drops super late. If you stay up from the range of midnight to 3 a.m. depending on where you live in the US, you'll see the clips that are first dropped, but you can really feel the big difference between the buzz of it dropping at midnight compared to when everyone's watching the regular seasons on Friday night. This also kind of messes with timings for things, like the pit stop comes out on Saturdays, but it feels like a full extra 2 days sometimes. Like if you're staying up to watch the episode from Thursday to Friday at midnight, it's a much longer wait than if the episode came out on Friday night and then you saw the pit stop on Saturday morning. And something else that is affected by when the episodes drop is viewing parties that happen on Fridays. The episodes drop too late on Thursdays to warrant watching in a bar, so instead the viewing parties happen in the normal Friday times around 8 p.m. It's still always so fun to go out and watch Drag Race, but at that point you could watch the episode 10 times over before even seeing it in the bar. But there is a different vibe between regular season viewing parties and All Stars because a lot of the time people know more results. The streaming service format just doesn't really help a reality competition show like Drag Race, so it just comes down to the trade-off of a more budget to very weirdly timed aired episodes. And while All Stars 10 is doing pretty good right now when it comes to people talking about it online, the past couple years with All Stars 8 and 9, I know that wasn't really the case, and we're even seeing a little dip during bracket 3. Paramount Plus is just not really helping, but I do understand why they do it because I think it is just a good business decision. Anetra versus Marcia was not a double save. I agree with this, and I'm also going to give it a 4. I do believe Anetra did win this lip sync because she matched the vibe of the song the best. Up to this point on Drag Race, especially coming off of season 14, I think we were just really conditioned to expect a double save at some point over the season. We did get it with Mistress and Anetra later in the season, but I kind of always think that it was going to be a top 4. So when given Anetra versus Marcia, one of the best lip syncs of all time, viewers are just going to follow patterns of what has happened in past seasons and expect that double save to happen. But looking past just how entertaining this lip sync is, if you're looking at who is winning the lip sync, it is definitely Anetra. Comedy challenges can be so much better if they had the right team writing them, because the potential virality that these challenges can have. I'm gonna be honest, I have to disagree with this one, but I will give it a 3 out of 10. I think almost everyone can agree that the acting challenges in specific on the show are not funny right now. But there's a lot of people out there holding out hope that we could get consistently funny acting challenges if we just have the right team. And while yes, I do believe that writing can get better if there are just the right people writing in the way that Drag Race should be performing these, I don't think they'll ever have the same virality as SNL or be as funny. And it just all comes down to how they are shot. Acting challenges and improv challenges for that matter rarely have audiences, but I think a live audience is really what makes SNL super funny. The reason Daytona Wins is so well regarded as one of the funniest and best acting challenges is because of the reaction of all the queens and the judges. They serve as the audience reacting to the ridiculous situation that they are watching, and that's why most people really enjoy this acting challenge even though it is an acting challenge. And we can of course look at the parody of SNL, RDR Live, which I just don't think works as well as SNL because all of the laughter is edited in. That's why I prefer comedy challenges like stand-up or roasts because it's much more organic than anything we can get from an acting challenge. And we can also always point to some queens just not being good at acting, not knowing how to memorize lines super well. Like the list goes on with that, but I've talked about it a lot already. There should be challenges that involve working with a crowd / hosting. I completely agree with this one, and with the amount of likes that this post got, I'm gonna give it a 1 because it seems very popular. My favorite thing when I go to a drag show, even more than the performances, is watching the host just do their thing. Hosting is one of the hardest things to do in the world, and it really does separate certain queens from others. The ability to make connections every night with strangers and just get up on a mic and be entertaining, it is so much harder than people really think. The hosts are the introduction, they're closing the show, and they're the reason that people may come back to that bar in the first place. There's a reason why hosts will often be the most consistent person performing in that bar. When you find someone who's talented, you're gonna want to keep them as long as you can. So bringing that in the most pure form to Drag Race, I think would really challenge the queens. We've seen it sort of in other forms like the DragCon panels or like the talk show thing that they did, but I do think it could be really fun to just have the queens walk up on stage, give them a mic, mic and just kind of tell them to go. A show called Game Changers on the streaming service called Dropout did a very interesting thing with 3 comedians where they had a room full of people with shirts on that said, "Ask me about blank." If Drag Race can take that idea and apply it to like the queens and how they could host, I think that could be a really interesting and cool challenge.
Yours, does it say ask about my accident?
It says addiction.
Whoops.
Michelle Visage is needed on the panel no matter how harsh she is. I agree with this, and I'm gonna give it like a 3 or 4 out of 10. I believe more people like Michelle than people who don't, but there's always a group of people that are saying that either her or Rue should step down from the show. A lot of times I see a bell curve in people's attitudes towards Michelle. They start off not really liking her because she's super intimidating, they grow to like her as this motherly figure, but as they get more and more in the show and the critiques start to make less sense, they start to drop off on their enjoyment again. Especially with her recent critiques not really making sense at all on All Stars 10. Things like calling Lydia nervous during the rapping roast when I don't really think she was. But the thing is, if Michelle wasn't there to say them, they would just get someone else to say those critiques instead. Michelle definitely has her own opinions and she will voice them, but she does also follow the lead of production who tells her what to say. Bottom line, she loves drag and she definitely loves the queens. Early seasons we see this a lot with her going on tour with them, and even now we still get her on What Ya Packin'. She is way too integral to warrant a replacement on the show, and you gotta come to terms with the fact that they're not always going to be the nicest on the show. Modern Drag Race villains try way too hard to be iconic. For this opinion, I'm pretty neutral on it, and I'm gonna give it a 6 out of 10. We just don't live in a world now where a true reality TV villain can really exist. This isn't exclusive to Drag Race, there's a lot of shows that suffer the same issue. With the rise of social media, there's a lot of people acting a certain way on a TV show because they don't really want to face backlash. If people are upset, they would rather hold their tongue than really create any conflict. But there's a smaller group of people who understand TV and want to go in there to be the villain. Instead of genuine reactions that lead to villainous moments, we have people going in ready to make the villainous moments no matter what. And often you can see them trying to force it wherever they can. A big example would be Plain Jane, who I have never really loved as a villain because it just felt so unnatural. I like her and her drag persona, but anytime she was trying to stir the pot, I saw right through it. The thing is, I will always value the queens who go in trying to stir the pot because they serve as a lightning rod for all of the hate you can get from a season. With someone like Plain Jane, I didn't really like or buy the pot stirring, but on a reality show, there needs to be conflict, and they're the ones that are making it, often taking place of a bad edit that someone else could get. If they know that they're going in to be the villain and they know that they're going to get a ton of hate from the season, that's much better than someone going in and getting a very bad edit. Much like Michelle Visage, they are a necessary evil, but I'd much rather see them ham it up knowing that they are going to be disliked than a queen who is just caught on a bad day and gets a bad edit from it. This comment might have been made right before Mistress or maybe a little after Mistress did the whole 2-point thing, which is definitely a scenario that sparked a lot of anger online, and I think Mistress is the #1 example of a queen that does not care about what people think of her. And that honestly gets on the nerves of a lot of people that they can't get to someone. It takes a special type of queen to go in there and shake things up without bending to the hate that they receive online. Fans just gotta realize that not every queen is going to be nice, especially off of the show, but in turn, they don't have to support a queen that they dislike, and they also don't have to send any hate to them because I just don't think that's productive at all. All Stars 2 is extremely overrated. I think over the years, there are people who have been saying this more and more, so I'm between a 7 and 8 for this one, but I'll give it a 7. And I'm pretty neutral on this take too. I think this cast is just too inherently good to make a bad season of Drag Race, so a lot of people look past the weird judging and protection of certain people. I do always wonder how the fandom would react nowadays because people are super critical and hyper-vigilant like these stupid YouTubers, because there are a lot of questionable moments, but so much of this season was just solidified right away as iconic TV that people just kind of look past the outcome, especially on a rewatch, because the magic still works for them. I just think the highs of the season were so high and the lows of the season were a little upsetting but nothing too crazy that it just allowed for people to enjoy the season despite its faults. If you're looking for reasons to critique it, there are definitely a lot here, but I don't really think it commits any more sins of another All-Star season. So if every season's basically on an even playing field with protection and possible rigging or whatever, All Stars 2 definitely looks the best in comparison. A top 3 is the best type of finale. I agree with this, and as we get further and further from original top 3s and season 16, I think this opinion is getting more and more popular, so I'll give it a 3. It's taken me some time to come around on this as I become a more hardened Drag Race viewer, because I used to be way more wide-eyed and be like the more the merrier in the top, but now I do agree that top 3s are the best for a couple of different reasons. A lot of it comes down to the editing of the top 4, all sort of having a winner's edit, but none of them being super satisfying. This was definitely the worst around the time that they were doing lip sync for the crown because there were so many factors that they didn't have control over. So basically everyone had to go in the top 4 looking like the true contender for the crown, when in reality, a lot of the time it just kind of hurt the winners overall overall storyline. The top 3 helps to flesh out the 3 most viable queens for the crown, and it also makes the competition look a lot more tough. Getting to the top 3 of a competition is harder than getting to the top 4 or the top 5. It also makes the finalists feel more special. Like we saw on season 16, these 3 queens definitely represented the season the most. Sometimes in the top 4, all of the queens are uber talented, but maybe one of them just isn't as integral to the storyline. So they don't have as much winner's equity, but they're still edited to look like they do, and then it just becomes a little lopsided and confusing. A top 3 gets rid of that issue. The jury twist or teams could come back and be successful. I agree, and I think part of this opinion is pretty popular with the whole teams idea, but the jury might still be unpopular, so I'm gonna give it a 6. I've talked about this a couple times, but both of these twists failed because the queens didn't know that they were happening when they went into the season. Over the past couple years, I've become a huge Survivor geek, so I think the jury could actually work pretty well, especially in the type of season that we're seeing right now. The whole point setup is leading to alliances and strategy and some backstabbing, honestly. And honestly, if they brought all the queens back at the end to vote for like a top 2, I think that would be super interesting. It would bring relationships into play again. People would have to either play nice or like backstab and then justify it. There's a lot they could do with that concept, but still the jury is something that I think a lot of people have a bad taste in their mouth over. So if it never comes back, I definitely understand why. Teams, on the other hand, is definitely something that I see fans speculate about all the time now. RuPaul's Best Friend Race, where they bring in teams like Trixie and Katya, Bob and Monet, Jinx and Dela, couples like that. It's almost fanficky to talk about, but I honestly do think in a couple years it could be a pretty viable option. If they ever want to do another charity season, I think bringing in teams like this could be a way to do it. As long as people are given proper preparation, I think we could see some really great drag, as some of the best minds from the show put their heads together. Bring back mall drag and simple looks to Drag Race. This opinion has definitely gotten more popular over time. I'm pretty neutral on it, so I'm gonna give it a 4. I completely agree that queens shouldn't have to spend thousands of dollars on a runway package, go into debt over it. I just don't think that's sustainable, and for a show at this caliber, it's a little ridiculous, but I also just don't see a world where we can go back to simpler looks. Queens are coming on Drag Race to be the best of the best, and even if it doesn't really represent like drag on a local level, they're coming on to express their artistry to the absolute limit that they can. I 1000% hope that the show continues to provide stipends to the queens in order to fund these runways, and I also believe that a lot of the queens who go on the show don't want to go back to simpler drag. They are willing and want to spend the money on these more extravagant looks because they want to look their best on TV. Simple is just something that a lot of queens don't ever want to touch. There's nothing wrong with simple or mall drag. It is the most practical form of drag, and it's definitely a thing that you have to respect. The drag on Drag Race is not the most accurate to all of the drag in the world, and that's a conversation for like another day. Mall drag has its place, but it's been pushed out of Drag Race.
I look like I work at the mall compared to you guys. You do, girl. Oh, bitch.
I got a couple comments on the whole debate about having drag kings on the show. Some agree, some disagree, and some brought up bigger issues within the community. I used to very much be in the camp that drag kings should be allowed to compete on Drag Race, and while if given the chance, I do hope that they bring a king on at some point. I do understand the concerns of how a king may be treated if they were on Drag Race. The critiques could be different and could be taken the wrong way, and I could definitely see people getting up in arms about this. Even through all of that, I would still want them to at least have one king on just for the representation. I'm kind of using all of this as a segue to talk about King of Drag, a show that just premiered. It is the first competition show that centers around drag kings, and while the show is working out its kinks, especially with like the budget, it is a very quality show from this point. Murray Hill, the host, is so charismatic. I love all of the kings. The editing is surprisingly really great. It's a show that I want to support all the kings out there, and it's clearly something that has a lot of potential to grow. If you're a fan of drag, I think you should support the show because I don't think kings get the proper praise that they deserve. I'm not sponsored or anything, I just believe in the show. You can watch it for free if you live in the US. If you don't, I think you can use a VPN to get there. I just really hope that the show goes for a super long time. I actually didn't mind All Stars 9. I hard disagree with this one, and I would give it around a 6 out of 10. All Stars 9 had some amazing drag with a group of queens that I think would only come back under this style of format. No eliminations, a huge appearance fee, and a stipend for runways. I think that's like a great deal that anyone would take up. But for a season of Drag Race, there are some incredible drag moments that are in between super overstuffed episodes with a ton of filler. The queens gave a great effort on the season, but I think we saw, especially with the lip syncs, sometimes people were just not like trying their best. And I've come to learn from a lot of fans that the lip sync is like the make or break moment of the episode. The episode could be just okay up to that point, but if the lip sync is great, it could rate the episode much higher. I also wasn't a huge fan of like a third of the challenges on the season. They just didn't really hit for me. The storylines were super flimsy at best, and I don't think the Scissors did a good enough job creating any conflict or like competitiveness. And then we also get the 1-2 punch in the finale with the first first part not having anything going on, and the second part having two twists, one that really shakes up the season with the 3 stars, and then the double diamond twist that had absolutely nothing going on the season. Them doing everything for charity is great, and I do think that it could come back in some form. I think more so one-off episodes instead of an entire season, but it truly was the hardest season to talk about on my channel because it's not like anything was actually bad. There was just nothing interesting going on outside of some amazing drag at points, but I can only go so far to say, yeah, Plastique destroyed the runway again this week. Plus, if you watch my channel long enough, you know that I talk more about the show than just the drag in general. Nymphia's boba reveal was overrated. I'm gonna slightly disagree with this one, but I do think it is pretty controversial, so I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10. It's one of those reveals that you can easily see coming, you just didn't know exactly what was gonna be underneath that giant coat that she was wearing. In a way though, I think it was intentional for her to have this huge coat and show that there is a reveal, because we hadn't seen anything like the balloons up to this point on Drag Race. So even if you could see the reveal coming, it was pretty surprising to see all these balloons float up, because if you really think about it, it's a pretty hard reveal to pull off. Do I think it single-handedly won her the lip sync? Definitely not. But after the first chorus hits and they both start going super hard, I think this is the thing that edged her out in the end. They were super evenly matched in the lip sync. I think it's one of the best finale lip syncs that we've ever seen. So I think you can point to the boba moment as the moment that Nymphia won the season, more so as the cherry on top of a great lip sync though. Violet and Gottmik didn't deserve the hate they got for fashion photo review. I am gonna actually agree with this one, and I'll give it a 7 out of 10. For those who aren't in the know on all of this, if you joined the fandom after 2022, Violet and Gottmik hosted fashion photo review for All Stars 7, and after the first couple episodes, it became a WoW Presents Plus exclusive because of the amount of backlash that they got for their critiques. This mostly had to do with them booting a couple of Raj's looks, which people were expecting to get toots or even shoots. The fandom, and kind of just the internet at large, is always looking for validation for their opinions from other people. I even fall into this too sometimes. So when people saw Raja's runways and loved them, they were expecting everyone else online to gush over them too. And a lot of other Drag Race channels did gush over them, just not Fashion Photo Review, which is like the main one. So Violet and Gottmik's critiques threw fans into a tizzy, saying that they don't know fashion or they don't deserve to be hosting, when in all reality, it's just two queens' opinions that aren't really gospel. Violet and Gottmik don't have an effect on the season. All of the judges loved Raja's look, so directing this much hate is just so unnecessary. Like I said earlier, if you don't like someone because they're not a nice drag queen, you don't have to support them. And likewise, you don't have to support someone if you don't agree with their opinions. You can just move on. What I've noticed in the fandom is that people tend to hold the pit stop and fashion photo review in very high regard because they are the official WoW shows after all, but just because two people are sitting in those seats giving their opinions, it doesn't mean that they should be held any higher. If you don't like the people hosting or giving their opinions, you can watch another recap show from other drag queens who've been on. Or again, these stupid little Drag Race YouTubers like myself. Comments online definitely won't change the minds of most people, especially Violet Chachki, so laugh it off and just watch something else. And I think we should end it on an opinion that wasn't submitted, but it's just something that people are talking about a lot right now. Who won the lip sync between Denali and Ginger? In my opinion, just based off of that horrible edit that we got for the lip sync, I still think Denali won, but it wasn't like super blowout. Do I understand why they gave it to Ginger? Kind of. I do enjoy what she was doing in the lip sync because she was never gonna outdance Denali. Ginger is a great lip syncer and she's doing the classic Ginger isms, and there's a vocal group in the fandom who are very critical of that or just not into that at all. I enjoyed what Ginger was doing in the lip sync because I just enjoyed Ginger. She was definitely slightly understated while Denali was definitely overstated, and that's been a lot of people's criticism of Denali, like she was doing too much in the lip sync, which yeah, if there was somehow a combination of Denali and Ginger's performances, I think it would be great. I also just don't really love this song for a lip sync in general. So no, I don't think it was out of the realm of possibility to see Ginger walk away with that win, but I just wish they would kind of spread it out a little more. There's also the conversation being brought up about if we would be talking about this the same way if Denali was given the win for the lip sync. Would we be having these same debates over performance, or would we just be nodding our heads? I think it all revolves around people's opinions of Ginger being on this season. Once again, it's unfortunate. It feels like they're setting Ginger up a lot on this season, while at the same time setting her up for a lot of hate online. We'll see what happens from here on out, but if Ginger's in the top again next week, it's just gonna open the same wound once again. So with that being said, send her some love, send all of the queens some love from the season, because it's been a little bad the past couple weeks. That's about it for all of these hot takes. I'll definitely do another one of these sooner than the last time. Thank you so much for watching. Patreon coming soon, and I will see you soon with another video.